Good evening and welcome to the Stearns County Board of Adjustment public hearing for the 23rd of June, and let us please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a couple of announcements to make. If you're in possession of a cell phone, I ask that you please put it on silent mode at this time. Also, please note that all testimony is being tape recorded for the record. If you're going to speak, you'll be asked to state your name and address for the record first, and then go ahead with your input after being recognized by myself. Members of the Board of Adjustment are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners with one member from each of the 5 commissioner districts, 1 member at large, and 1 member appointed from the Planning Commission. So this is kind of a brief overview of how we do things this evening. I'll read the variance request and then open the public hearing up. While I'm reading your request, I would ask that the applicant or their representatives come forward and have a seat in front of the board by the microphone right over there. The applicant and or their representatives will be asked to state their name and address for our public record. Environmental Services staff will provide a brief overview of the requested variance, the staff report, and if any correspondence has been received regarding this request. The applicant and or their representatives will then provide any input, corrections, concerns, comments, or etc. Once the applicant or the representatives have provided their testimony, the board will discuss the request and will ask questions of staff or the applicant or their representative. Upon completion of the board questions, I will ask if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request. And if there is, I would ask that that person come up to the podium, state their name and address for the record, and give their testimony. Then, when all testimony is complete, I'll ask the board members for a motion to close the public hearing. Once the motion is passed to close the public hearing, there will be no further input from the audience, from the applicant, or Environmental Services staff unless being recognized by the chair or if one of the board members wants some type of clarification to their question. The board will then review and discuss the finding of facts. The findings are a series of questions that the board is required to answer based on the Minnesota statutes and the requirements of that ordinance. Based on the answers to these questions, the board will either grant or deny the variance request, and all questions must be answered in the affirmative by the board to pass. Once the findings are complete, there will be a motion to approve or deny the request based upon those findings, and that's kind of how we run things here. And so item number 1 here on our agenda, is it Zipoy? Hey, look at that. Starting out the night right. If you'll please come forward here. And so this is a request from section 6.2.1p table M of Stearns County Subsurface Sewage Treatment System Ordinance number 422 to locate a subsurface sewage treatment system, sewage tank and soil treatment area less than 150 feet from the ordinary high water level of a school section lake classified natural environment. Also to locate the soil treatment area less than 10 feet from a property line. Said ordinance requires a subsurface sewage treatment system, sewage tank, and soil treatment area to be located at least 150 feet from the ordinary high water level of a lake classified natural environment and a soil treatment area of at least 10 feet from a property line. And the affected property is lot 13, block 1 of West Oaks, section 36 in Main Prairie Township, and then the affected address is 14140 Badger Road in Kimball, Minnesota. And then if I can get your names and addresses for the record, please.
My name is Tim Zipoy, and my address 14027 Badger Road, Kimball, Minnesota.
Perfect.
Bernie Miller, 9075 155th Street, Kimball, Minnesota.
All right, thank you very much. And to staff for your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Did you guys have a chance to visit the site?
Yep.
All right, thank you. The applicant currently owns lot 13 of West Oaks. West Oaks is in Main Prairie Township and was platted in 1965. The tract contains approximately 13,232 square feet of lot area. The property is in an R1 zoning district. The applicant obtained the property in 2021. There is an existing 772 square foot 3-bedroom dwelling with a 324 square foot deck that was constructed in 1972 according to the county assessor's records, which was prior to the official controls. There are no permits on record for the existing subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling. The applicants have a septic design completed by a licensed septic designer. The septic design specifies sewage tank capacity and soil treatment area sized for a 3-bedroom dwelling. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of School Section Lake, which is classified natural environment. School section is not on the list of impaired waters. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling consists of 2 cesspools, which are non-compliant and will be abandoned as part of the request. An alternative to the request would be to modify the request to use the proposed sewage tank capacity as holding tanks without a soil treatment area, which would still require a variance. Maine Prairie Township, Clearwater River Watershed District, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request, and we have not had any correspondence with regards to this request. Thank you.
All right, applicant and representatives, anything you wish to say to the board?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. Again, my name is Tim Zipoy, and I recently inherited that property from my deceased parents' estate, and I'm just so blessed to have it, but yet it was in need of a variety of repair and upgrade, to include the septic system, plainly put. And it's something that should be done now, in the sense that we're taking possession of it and wanting to do things right. And I've partnered up with a recognized subject matter expert in the industry. Kimball's blessed to have Mr. Bernie Miller and Miller Sewage Treatment Solutions, and I'm offering him up for further explanation. But I'm just looking to manage the property as best I can, because I too value the lake and the environment. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, yeah, I think most of it has been explained. Part of this, one of the concerns here is we do have, that wasn't pointed out, there is a shallow well on the property that is less than 50 feet from a cesspool. It's a bad situation. The cesspools, one of them is even in the township right away. The other one is in an easement that is a utility easement that was a 6-foot utility easement that runs along the roadside of the property that was from when it was platted and dedicated to the township. So we looked at how we could minimize all the impacts or the significance of the variances, by drilling a new well, moving the septic back as far as we can. The soils are actually very good. The highest portion of the lot is where we have the drain field, and so that gives us the ability to do a type 1 system. We have went to the township, and we do have their unofficial minutes, but they have approved, and we'll do an encroachment agreement to allow us to put the drain field and tank in that easement, so we can further increase the setback off the lake. I think if you look down this whole road, all these lots are basically the same depth. Some of them are combined with additional, wider lots or that, but I don't think there's any one of these lots that we have worked on out here, or any of them that we've looked at, that could actually meet the setback for a septic system, and yet they all have them. The property just beyond this also had to get variances for the septic, and I think for the most part that covers pretty much everything on it.
Any board members have any questions for the applicant or representative? Anybody at all? Any questions? Anybody from the audience wishing to speak to this? Legally required to ask this 2 more times. Anybody from the audience wishing to speak to this? Anyone from the audience wishing to speak to this? Since there is none, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, now moving to our findings of facts here. All right, so number 1 here, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, septics are allowed in R1 district.
Okay. We got a yes from George. Dave? Or not, excuse me, Dave. George?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right. A yes for number 1. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yes, it will be. Every place there has a septic system. The only thing we're looking at are distances, so I say yes.
Okay. All right. Dave?
I agree.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, okay. All right, yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I think it will be consistent. I don't have the document in front of me to cite what's in the comprehensive plan, but I believe it's consistent with that plan, lakeshore living. You have to have a septic system.
We have a yes for number 3. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I believe the resident does intend to use it in a reasonable manner. They have a septic system now. They're just replacing it with a more efficient one that's up to standards. So I'd say yes.
Very good. George is yes. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken? Yes. Yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I would say yes, because it's just because the lake, there isn't enough depth and to put it the distance the county wants it, requires it to be. So that's kind of unique. They had nothing to do with it. So
I agree. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Rob?
Yes.
Yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Yes, once the, Bonnie Mossman, once the septic system is installed, you won't see anything that there's been any changes, so.
Okay. Yes for number 6 from Bonnie. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
yes.
Yes for number 6. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I say Dave Gamrod, economics were part of this decision.
All right, a yes from Dave for number 7. George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Very good. All questions being answered in the affirmative. I'm looking for a motion to approve the variance request.
I will move to approve the variance request.
I'll second it.
All right, we got a motion and a second from Ken and George. All right, the remainder of the votes. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Rob?
Yes.
All right. And can we get the formal language for the motion as well? I think they probably need that for the record, correct? Okay. And so can I get that from you, Ken, for just the record there?
Yes, move to approve the variance of for the Stearns County for this sewage treatment system to be located 80 feet. According to this here, it says 80 feet and 94 feet from the ordinary high water mark on School Section Lake.
And then 5.
Oh, and 5 feet from the side yard. Well, we don't know if all of this, because they said they're asking for, was that including before you talked to the township or after? You said you had talked to the township about encroaching on the road. So is that?
Mr. Chair, members, this plan hasn't changed since we talked to them. We've always intended to push it back as far as we can. The easement is, I mean, there's 25 feet between the actually edge of the dead-end road and the property line, so there's no utilities, no need for an easement there, so this has been the original plan. So
that will be 5 feet from.
Perfect. All right, your motion has been approved. If you have any questions, please ask staff during regular business hours. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along to agenda item number 2. To consider a request from Deborah Jean Kistner, Revocable Trust of Cold Spring, Minnesota, from Section 6.2.1P, Table M of Stearns County Subsurface Sewage Treatment System, Ordinance 422, to locate a subsurface sewage treatment soil system area less than 20 feet from a residential structure. Said ordinance requires a subsurface sewage treatment soil system treatment area to be at least 20 feet from the residential structure. Affected property 69A, part of Government Lot 1, on the shore of Big Fish Lake, 746.55 east of southwest corner of Lot 1, Section 21, Collegeville Township, and then that property address is 17195 Big Fish Lake Road, Cold Spring, Minnesota. And can I get your name and address for the record, please?
My name is John Kistner, 17195 Big Fish Lake Road, Cold Spring, Minnesota.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Kistner, and I live at 17195 Big Fish Lake Road, Cold Spring, Minnesota.
Thank you so much. And staff, to your report.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, did you have a chance to visit the site?
And I'll answer in the affirmative.
Thank you. So the applicants currently own a meets and bounds tract in Collegeville Township on Big Fish Lake. The tract contains approximately 30,056 square feet in lot area. The property is in an R1 zoning district. The applicant purchased the property in 2008. There is an existing 2,742 square foot 4-bedroom dwelling with attached garage that was permitted and constructed in 1977. The existing subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling was permitted and constructed in 2002. A compliance inspection was completed on the system by a licensed septic inspector in April of 2022. The system was determined to be non-compliant for soil separation, failing to protect groundwater. The applicants have a septic design completed by a licensed septic designer. The septic design specifies locating the subsurface sewage treatment system soil treatment area, sized for a 4-bedroom home, 10 feet from the residential structure. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Big Fish Lake, which is classified recreational development. Big Fish is on the list of impaired waters for mercury and fish. An alternative to the request would be to use the proposed sewage tank capacity as a holding tank without a soil treatment area. Collegeville Township, Big Fish Lake Association, Sauk River Watershed District, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request, and we have not received any correspondence with regards to this request as well. Thank you.
Very good. And applicants, anything wish to share with the board?
Well, basically, we tried to get a zero property clearance with the neighbors, and they were refused to do that. So basically, that's why it's going that close to the home. Otherwise, the previous system was on a zero property line, and that was signed off by Ellers, and then the property has been sold twice since. So the new owners of the property do not want to.
And then we do have Tim on the line, right, from WATAB?
Oh.
I think.
We do now.
Okay, perfect.
Tim, you want to share your name and address for the record?
Good evening. This is Tim Haig with Watab Inc. My address is 14234 Fruit Farm Road, St. Joseph, Minnesota 56374.
Perfect. Anything you wish to share or add?
You didn't hear a lot of the conversation, Tim, but is there anything you want to share with regards to your design?
Yes, to the board, and I apologize if it's Mr. Chair or Madam Chair. I haven't met the new board yet, but and the board, I would just like to say that we have extremely limited space available. The system that's going in is replacing an existing non-conforming system. It's in the exact same location, but of a conforming nature. The existing system is also 10 feet from the structure, and it's also 0 feet from the property line, but unfortunately we were not able to get another reduced side yard setback agreement from the neighbor. And so we are electing, and it would also limit the access to the lake if we put it right up to the property line. So these folks need access to the lake. I can understand that. So I said we could do it maintaining the 10-foot property line setback if we could go in exactly the same location with the same 10-foot setback to the dwelling that exists currently.
And that's, all right, I got right?
Sounds good, Tim.
Perfect.
Anything else?
No, just I hope that everything goes smoothly. If you have any concerns, please let me know. Thanks for your time.
Very good. And anything else you wanted to add, or good?
No, he
Okay.
explained it all.
All right, perfect. Any questions from board members for the applicant or their representative from Watab? Seeing no questions or comments from the board, again, opening up to the audience for questions. Anyone from the audience wishing to speak to the matter? Anyone from the audience wishing to speak to the matter? And anyone from the audience wishing to speak to the said matter? There being none, I am looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Okay. Motion for Rob. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Ken. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now moving to our questions for our findings of fact. Number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, septics are allowed in an R1 zoning district.
All right, Dave is a yes for number one. George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yeah.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number one. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
I believe the intent of the official controls is to protect the waterways, and this is where the septic system currently was. Looking at this property, it's a unique shape of the property because of the well and the setback from the lake. There really is no other location to place this, and so I think it would meet this requirement.
All right, Bonnie is a yes for number two. George?
Yes.
Dave? Yes. I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, yes for number two. And number three, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yes, I believe it will be under the goal of nature and to recognize the relationship between land use and water quality.
All right, very good. George is a yes for number three. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number three. Number four, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yes, it's reasonable to want to update your septic.
Very good. Dave is a yes for number four. George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number four. Number five, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, yes, I believe it is because of the shape of the property and limited space to put it in.
All right, Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number five. And number six, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, it's not going to alter anything in the neighborhood at all.
Okay, yes from Rob for number 6. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Well, the reason is the need for a working septic system regardless of expense.
Yep, Bonnie is a yes for number 7. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. And Rob?
Yes.
And then Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 7. All questions being answered in the affirmative, I'm looking for a motion to approve the variance.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance, and the wording is, to locate a subsurface sewage treatment system, soil treatment area 10 feet from a residential structure.
Okay. Motion for Bonnie. Looking for a second.
I'll
Dave
second
Cameron,
it.
I'll second.
Here you go, Ken first.
Where are the other-
Okay. All right. And the remaining votes, George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And then so all that is answered in the affirmative. So your motion does indeed pass. And if you have any questions for staff, just please contact them during regular business hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 3, to consider the after the fact request, a new request from Jamie and Micah. How do you say your last name? Jules. I like that. It's just like my name. It's Hawk. No L in there. Cold Spring, Minnesota, from section 6.21G, 9.99A3, and 10.211A, 1A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439, and section 6.21P, Table M of Stearns County Subsurface Sewage Treatment System Ordinance 422, to leave as constructed a 788 square foot residential dwelling addition and a 690 square foot deck less than 100 feet from the ordinary high water level of Zimwaldi Lake, classified a recreational development. Also to request to construct a new additions on the residential dwelling unit less than 10 feet from a residential accessory structure, less than 63 feet from the center line of a township road, and less than 20 feet from a subsurface soil treatment area. Said ordinance requires a residential dwelling, addition, and deck to be located 100 feet from the ordinary high water level of a lake classified as recreational development. Residential dwelling additions to be placed a minimum of 10 feet from residential accessory structure building 63 feet away from the center line of a township road and 20 feet from a subsurface soil treatment area. And the affected property is lots 6 and 7, Cedar View, section 29 in Wakefield Township, and then the address of the property is 18253 Frostview Court in Cold Spring, Minnesota. And then can I get your name and address for the public record, please?
My name is Micah Jules, 16922 County Road 49 in Cold Spring.
Good evening, and thanks for your time. My name is Jamie Jules, and I'm also at 16922 County Road 49 in Cold Spring.
Thank you very much. And staff, to your report.
Sure. Mr. Chair, members of the board, did you have a chance to visit the site?
And for the record, all answered in the affirmative, correct? George, did you make it out there? I'll accept George.
Okay. The applicants currently own lots 6 and 7 of Cedar View in Wakefield Township on Zumwald Lake. Cedar View is platted in 1956. The tract contains 25,324 square feet in lot area per the survey provided by the applicant. The property is in an R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2021. There are an existing 920 square foot residential dwelling and a 120 square foot shed that were constructed in 1968 prior to the official controls. In 1975, a 224 square foot dwelling addition was permitted and constructed. In 1988, a 780 square foot detached garage was permitted and constructed. In 1994, a 120 square foot shed constructed over the property line without a permit. In 2023, a 788 square foot dwelling addition, 690 square foot deck, and 224 square foot deck were constructed without a permit. The 224 square foot deck that was constructed in 2003 without a permit on the road side of the home will be removed in coordination with the proposed project. The existing subsurface sewage treatment system that services the existing 3-bedroom dwelling was permitted and constructed in 2008. A compliance inspection was completed on the system by a licensed septic inspector in April of 22. The system was determined to be compliant. The applicants have a septic design completed by a licensed septic designer. The septic design specifies adding a new subsurface sewage treatment system sewage tank and additional soil treatment area, so the system will be sized to accommodate the 4 bedrooms that are proposed in this project. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Zumwalt Lake, which is classified recreational development. Zumwalt is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is 21.6% per the survey provided. The proposed will be 22.3% when all is said and done. Wakefield Township, Sauk River Chain of Lakes Association, Sauk River Watershed District, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And we did not receive any correspondence with regards to this request.
All right, applicants, to your request.
Thanks. Appreciate the time tonight. And kind of just to summarize that in plain English, really what we're trying to do is maintain the current footprint of the home, which we purchased last fall, and add an extension of about 12 by 14 feet. And we're requesting that really to kind of fulfill the quality of life we want for our family. So it allows us to do 3 things. One is have 3 bedrooms on an upper level, so that's 1 for each of our daughters and for ourselves. It also allows us to have a dedicated space in the home for homeschooling our daughters. And the third is a dedicated office space so that we can work from the home. So we have made our best efforts to be as minimally invasive on the property as possible. So instead of moving our addition on the lakeside, we've moved on the side of the road. The road, as those have been out there know, is gravel. It's dead end, and we're the last road there. And really, we've prioritized having the additional square footage on the second level so that the main footprint of the home does not change. So really appreciate the consideration, and let us know if you have any questions.
All right, questions, comments from board members for the applicants or staff?
I have a question for staff. Is there after-the-fact permits required for all those that are not permitted?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the board, the after-the-fact portion, if the variance is granted for the addition, will be also added to that permit. If for whatever reason you guys would come to the conclusion that there was not, you weren't going to grant the variance for the additions, there still would be, and you would grant the after-the-fact stuff to stay, they would need to get a construction site permit for that stuff. So either way, it will be taken care of if anything is granted in the affirmative. And I forgot to add in my staff report, we do have a plan with the property owners to take care of that shed that is over the property line. We have a compliance agreement that has been signed and returned to us to take care of that. They're kind of working with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources right now because that property line that the shed is over is owned by the DNR. And so they're looking at trying to either get some land to, change that property line, or if that doesn't happen for whatever reason, they will be removing it, is my understanding. So we'll take care of that property line issue that's there.
Mr. Chair, just to add on a little bit, Angie Berg with Environmental Services. So Rob, to your question, the department does not charge after the fact fees to property owners who didn't do the work themselves. So this was a prior owner, and so they're not being charged the after the fact fees, but we are, as Jamie stated, if the variance is granted, we'll get those structures permitted.
So I have one question up to that. I'll ask you, how many places on lakes do we have in the county that are similar to this? Half of the places we seem to go to never had a permit, and now we're bringing them up to date.
Yeah, the 80s and 90s and late 70s were not very good times for permits being sought from the county when they should have been. And so thus the reason, you know, when people apply for variances, we want to look at all the structures on the property to clean them all up. That way, like in this situation, these people are being stuck with a situation that they didn't create with the, you know, the unpermitted additions. And so these variances allow us to kind of clean these situations up. If they're coming to see you for something, we might as well cover anything else that, you know, wasn't originally permitted. So, but as far as percentages, I can't, I couldn't even begin to tell you what we're
Sometimes they
at.
should do this when they're sold, because how many times might have this house been sold
Yeah.
since that time? And now until they want to do some actual work on it,
Yeah.
well, now you have to bring it up to date.
Right.
Get surprised.
Sometimes in title searches, they'll, you know, those types of things will be looked at and caught, but a lot of times if you don't have a title search done, there's.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair, Ken and Jamie can probably weigh in on this because she's a realtor, but my understanding is that there were changes to purchase agreements years ago where now you're supposed to disclose if your structures have proper permits. The difference with this one is this was a mortgage foreclosure, and so there wouldn't have been that documentation. So my guess is that's probably what happened.
Yeah, and if I might add, we had a few surprises with this one after buying it at the sheriff's sale, so, yeah. This encroachment and, yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
I guess my comment was to the applicants is that you weren't informed that this was out of compliance before you bought it.
That's correct. We found out when we made the variance request.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? All right, seeing none from the board. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the request? And anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the request? Hearing none, looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to close.
Second?
I'll second.
Second from Dave. All those in favor for closing the public hearing, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The public hearing is now closed, and we now move to our findings of fact questions. And so there are several other options as how to do this. You've got it where we can do it all together, which seems to make the most sense to me. Otherwise, you can just do the new addition separately after the fact, and then if we deny that, you know, that's the last option. But it seems to make sense to me to go all of the measures at once. Is that the general consensus, I think?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. All right, so number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, it's zoned R1, so a house with the second story on it is allowed.
Mm-hmm. All right, yes from Rob. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number one. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yes, it will be. It's a residential structure, just like the other ones around it.
All right, George is a yes for number two. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number two. Number three, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I believe it would come under the living goal in the comprehensive plan. So I would say yes.
Okay. Andrew, has anything to add to that, Bonnie? Okay. All right. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right. Yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I guess I would say yes. They plan to live there with their family and teach their kids and whatever. So to me, that would be a reasonable manner.
Very good. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
All right. Yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'd say yes. It's limited amount of space. There's few options to use, so I would say it's not due to the landowner.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also add to that they inherited these problems and they did not cause them.
And so that's a yes from you too, Bonnie.
Yes.
All right. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, it won't change anything in that community or in that area.
Mm-hmm. And as I think Ken aptly pointed out, we don't know how many places on the lake are quite similar to that, so it's very possible. It's very similar to very many around that area. All right, George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right. Yes for number 6. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Economics were not an issue here, so I would say yes.
All right, George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right. All 7 questions being answered in the affirmative. Can I get a motion to approve this and then note that all of this in the variance request will need to be read out for the motion here? Yeah, there you go.
Okay, I'll make a motion to leave as constructed a 788 square foot residential dwelling addition 69 feet and 690 square feet deck 57 feet from the OHWL of Zumwalt Lake classified recreational development. Also to construct new additions on a residential dwelling unit 4 feet from a residential accessory building, 50 feet from the center line of the township road, and 8 feet from a subsurface sewage treatment system area.
Very good. We've got a motion from Bonnie. Can I get a second here?
Second.
And a second from Ken. All right, the remaining votes. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. And Rob?
Yes.
All right. All those answered in the affirmative, your variance is granted. Any questions, please do contact staff during regular business hours. Thank you. All right, moving along to agenda item number 5. Request from Jody Allman of Hugo, Minnesota from section 9. Number 4.
Robert and Lisa Marie
Okay, can I
Hansen.
have that one? I think I might not actually have that one. Oh, it was out of order. There we go. That helps if I paid attention. All right, a request from Robert and Lisa Marie Hansen of Plymouth, Minnesota from sections 9.9, 9A, 10.211A 2, 10.211A 4A, and 10.211A 5 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a new residential dwelling, deck, and screen porch less than 30 feet from the right-of-way of Langvin Drive, classified a township road, ahead of the established building line less than 30 feet from the top of a bluff and in the bluff impact zone. Said ordinance requires a new residential dwelling, deck, and screen porch to be constructed 30 feet from the right-of-way of a township road, landward of the established building line, 30 feet from the top of a bluff, and not in the bluff impact zone. Affected property of lots are lots 25, 26, and 27, Block 1 of Jody Estates, Section 32 in Wakefield Township, and the address is 20655 Langdon Drive in Richmond, Minnesota. And applicants to your, can we get your name and address for the public record, please?
Yes, I'm Robert Hansen, 3900 Zanzibar Lane North in Plymouth, Minnesota, 55446.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Marie Hansen. I live at 3900 Zanzibar Lane North in Plymouth, Minnesota, 55446.
Thank you very much. And staff, to your report.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, did you guys have a chance to visit the site?
And I'll answer in the affirmative except for George.
Okay. The applicants currently own lots 25, 26, and 27, Block 1 of Jody Estates in Wakefield Township on Cedar Island Lake. Jody Estates was platted in 1986. The tract contains 28,912 square feet in lot area that is above the ordinary high water level per the survey provided by the applicant. The property is in an R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2020. There is an existing 768 square foot residential dwelling that was constructed in 1969 per the Stearns County Assessor's records prior to the official controls. There is an existing 200 square foot deck on the lake side of the dwelling that was constructed in 1992 without a permit. There are also a 99 square foot deck and a 120 square foot dwelling addition that were constructed in 2010 without a permit. A 64 square foot garden shed and 16 square foot outhouse are also on the property near the road. Those structures were located on the property in 2000 per the assessor's records, but will be removed for the proposed driveway. The existing subsurface sewage treatment system that services the existing dwelling was permitted and constructed in 2002. A compliance inspection was completed on the system by a licensed septic inspector in April of 2022. The system was determined to be compliant. The applicants have a septic design completed by a licensed septic designer. The septic design specifies locating a new subsurface sewage treatment system sewage tank that will be sized to accommodate the 4 bedrooms proposed in the new residential dwelling. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Cedar Island Lake, which is classified recreational development. Cedar Island is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients and mercury in fish. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the existing dwelling was permitted and was found compliant with the recent septic inspection. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is 6.6% per the survey provided. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project is complete will be 15.7%. An alternative to the request would be to replace the existing 768 square foot residential dwelling that was constructed prior to the official controls without expansion. Wakefield Township, Sauk River Chain of Lakes Association, Sauk River Watershed District, and Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request, and there have not been any correspondence that were given on this request as well.
Very good, thank you, Jamie.
I should say, Mr. Chair, members of the board, there is recommendations from Soil and Water Conservation District for this request. So if you guys had a chance to see those are possible options as conditions if you decide to move forward in the affirmative.
Thank you. Applicants to your request.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the board, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you on this actually beautiful evening. That property has been in my family since 1969. We originally purchased it in 2008, completing the contract for deed, I think, around that 2020. So after my mom passed away, my dad lost interest. The property was getting in rough shape, and so their dream was always to rebuild the lake house. And so we really are thinking that our plan is this would be our future home, and we would like to do so within the existing footprint. So we're living within the various cement structures that exist. We also want to preserve as many healthy trees as we can. There's about 10 mature trees that would have to be removed. About half of them are just not healthy, and so need to be removed anyway. But we want to maintain, the mature nature and beauty of the property. We're working with Corey Belmont at Wausau Homes as our contractor. Again, keeping the impervious surface down to that 15.7%. We're planning to use geothermal and an integrated solar roof to power and heat and cool the home. We will have a gutter system that ensures that no roof runoff will go toward the lake, and have no further impact on the bluff. Proactively, we've been working with Zach Studansky at Lake Friendly, and we are in the process of getting, since April, he gave us an estimate, and we're in the process of him working with Soil and Water to have that, his plan approved. My understanding is that we have the permit in place to repair and replace the retaining wall, steps, and patio, and as well as 15 feet of riprap on either side of that porch, as well as planting 25 dogwoods and willow trees, and wildflowers and native grasses for 6 to 10 feet depth from the lake shore back. And so that's been something that we've been working forward, and hope to have that permitted and completed by this summer. I expected to have a drawing to be included in that, but I was not able to get that drawing prior to the hearing. And so, let's see. In addition, we were working with Scott Elwood, mentioned the septic system. And so I think we've right-sized the tank, the drainage field. Everything was in compliance, but we were right-sizing the septic tank to accommodate the new home, and keep that squared away. I've also spoken with Wakefield Township, and who deferred certainly to you first, and said once we get the green light, we'd move forward. But our main discussion was regarding the road right-of-way, and they expressed no objection, especially as 4 cabins the north of us are in the road right-of-way, and I think that's some actually open onto the road right-of-way, so I think they didn't have any issues with that. We were building no closer to the lake, and once, if we should be granted the permit, she said we'd be working with Dave Barsati at Wakefield Township to go forward from there. So lastly, we've just talked to our neighbors, and they seem in general support of the project. They're excited that the cabin would be repaired and in good standing. So thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any board members, questions, comments for the applicant or staff?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I just want to kind of touch on the shoreland project that they're talking about. I did talk with Nick Newman, our shoreland guy in the office today. He said he did meet Mr. Studansky on the property either yesterday or a couple days ago. At this point, we have not received any plan, and so there is no permit in place for this project at this point, because he has not submitted any sort of application or plan at this time.
I misunderstood Zach. I thought he said.
Yeah, him and Nick have talked, and I think they've met on site a couple times.
Yeah.
But at this point, there is no permit, so I just want to clear that up.
Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood.
The applicants did provide us with a copy of the estimate from Mr. Studansky of the materials and the labor, so if you guys would like a copy just to see that, I would be glad to give you each one of the copies. I got it today, so it wasn't in your packet, so if you would like to take a look at it, I would gladly give you one. If you don't want one, that's fine too. It's up to you guys. So.
All right, any questions, comments, applicant or staff? Thank you.
And there's a guy that's walked up to the door a couple times and hasn't been able to get in.
Any questions, comments?
I have a question for staff.
Sure.
I'm looking at this one.
Yep.
How far ahead of the building line is it? Is it the heavy dashed line that goes through the front of the house there?
Correct, yes. So if you see that heavy dash line, it goes from the house to the west, I would say, to the house to the, if you're looking at the survey, yep, it's the heavy dash line that would be the actual building line. And so there is a little portion of the home which is ahead, and also the proposed deck and a little bit of the screen porch that would be ahead of that building line. There you go. It is on the...
And where would the bluff impact zone be?
Well, the bluff impact zone is the first 20 feet from the top. And so this structure, let me look at... So the proposed distance from the bluff to the deck, so the top of the bluff, would be 3.4 feet. The ordinance requires that that be 30 feet from the top of the bluff. And so that first 20 feet from the top is the bluff impact zone. So I don't know if it... So here's what they're calling the top of the bluff, right here. Ordinance requires you to be 30 feet from the top with any sort of structure. So this corner of this deck is 3.4 feet from the top of the bluff. Does that answer your question, Rob?
No. I thought I read or you said that it was in the bluff impact zone.
Right. So again, so here's the top of the bluff. The bluff impact zone would be 20 feet.
20 feet above it.
The setback is
30 feet.
from it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
But the deck is only partially in that.
The entire deck is in the shore or bluff impact zone, and a portion of the house as well. Yes.
Which is
because it'd be 20 feet from the top of the bluff.
half of the lot is bluff.
Right. I'm not by any means trying to sway you in any direction. I'm just telling you, yes, that's what the required setback is. And yeah, there is a lot of bluff there for sure.
Is the current house is in the bluff, correct?
It is in the bluff, yes. Bluff. Within the bluff setback for sure. Because the front of their home that they have proposed right now is in the same location as the front of the existing cabin, or the lake side of the home, I should say.
The lake side is the same. It will end up farther toward the road.
Right, yeah. If they wanted to meet the 30-foot bluff setback, they would be building it in the road.
Right.
What is the question for staff? So what's the rationale about the bluff? What's the deal about that?
Well, the bluff is obviously steep slopes, and worrying about structures in a steep slope, you think of hard rains and stuff like that. Things can slide down the hill when you have steep slopes. So the idea is once you get to a point where you're less than 18% slope, then you don't have a bluff anymore. And so when we get to that 18% location, you have to be 30 feet beyond that. So generally it's going to be even less slope after that. You know, things tend to level off usually when you get towards the road. So that's kind of the intent, to kind of keep things out of those areas where you could have situations like that.
Mr. Chair, just to add on to that a little bit too, is that when this original structure was built, there were not bluff standards. Bluff, maybe you covered that while I stepped out, but those didn't come into effect until 1992. So the purpose and intent of the the bluff standards now, as Jamie indicated, is to reduce the additional erosion potential impervious lot coverage on steep slopes, not only to protect the lake and the soil, but also for visual impacts to the water body. So just by way of explanation, I wanted to share that.
But can those things be mitigated successfully?
Mr. Chair, so that would be up to the Board of Adjustment to decide if what they're proposing and what Soil and Water Conservation District has come up will fully mitigate. They're not fully mitigating all the new impervious lot coverages created for that new structure. The intent is to minimize the impact on a bluff, and so another option I believe that we shared with the applicants was, you know, if you redesign the home, the bluff setback could be met. Now's the opportunity to see a structure be located wholly outside of the bluff impact zone. So Jamie and I and lots of people probably can't tell you if it'll fully mitigate. We're not engineers, but water's going to run downhill no matter how much you try to design a plan to make it go into an infiltration basin somewhere else.
If they keep most of those large trees, there's some pretty good sized trees on the downhill slope though. That would help quite a bit, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, large mature trees drink a lot of water. So
if you move the house to the south, would you be getting off the bluff then? If you move the house to the south, then you can move it closer to the road, right? You could get out of the bluff area, couldn't you?
it looks like you could. There is a proposed septic and an existing septic that's in that area right now. And it would require that to be relocated. Obviously, without being out there to look at soils, there possibly could be room, you know, up on the northwest side, possibly. Again, I don't know where the neighbors to the north's well is, because that can play, you know, once you start working with setbacks, that becomes very challenging. And so there's a lot of things that we don't know sitting in this room right now to say, yes, that's where this should go and the septic can go over there, because I don't know. The neighbors might have a shallow well close to that property line, in which case you would need a 100-foot setback from that for your septic drain field. So it's kind of hard to say, but you know, are there some options? There could be some other options. I
don't have any more questions.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the applicants. Is any part of the new structure closer to the bluff than the old structure?
No, sir.
The deck or no?
It's actually a little bit back, including the deck. We didn't make the deck as deep, so that's, and there's a big cement structure on in front of where the screen porch is that we're there's a retaining wall, so we were going to keep that, thinking that would help some of that erosion possibility. But
and all the water is going to be.
We're going to gutter the to the back, and we're talking about different systems. Whether we thought about doing rain barrels to water, but we're going to have to come up with a system that works. But definitely, all the gutters would be running to the back of the lot, away from the lake.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments from board members for the applicant and or the staff? Seeing none, is there anyone from the audience wishing to speak to the measured hand? Anyone to the audience wishing to speak? Anyone from the audience wishing to speak? Hearing none, looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Also move.
From Dave.
Second.
And second from George. All right. All those in favor for closing the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving now to our findings of facts. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, housing is allowed in the R1 district.
All right, a yes from Dave. George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 1. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. Yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say no, that the footprint of the proposed house is much bigger than the existing home. And there's a lot more in the bluff impact zone, including the entire deck.
All right, a no from Rob. George?
I'm a yes.
Dave?
I'll be a yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
I'm a yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with a comprehensive plan. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I believe it would fall under the living goal in the comprehensive plan and lakeshore living.
Okay, yes from George. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
No.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner. Yes or no?
I believe they are with their plan of, they're looking at an extensive mitigation plan. They are trying to, avoid removal of any of the trees on the lake side. They're agreeing to, as part of the mitigation plan, the guttering. And this is a kind of an odd-sized lot with the road that kind of circles around in front, really limits what they can do on that side of the house. So I would believe it is.
Okay. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. Yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go with no. They're the ones that are expanding the house, more square foot in the impact zone, bluff impact zone, along with the deck in the impact zone. So they're the ones that are creating that situation.
Okay. George?
I'm going to say yes. That's kind of a weird shaped lot because it's got that cul-de-sac circle that takes out part of the land. So I'm going to say yes.
Okay. Dave?
I would have to say no.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Number 5 is a yes. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
I say it would be because there's been a house there for how many years, and they're going to be replacing it with a new house that will be much nicer than they'll be bringing things up to date. So I would say yes.
All right, a yes from Ken. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Rob?
Yes.
Okay. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
don't believe economics were a reason for the request of the variance.
All right, yes from Bonnie. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yeah.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, all 7 questions being answered in the affirmative. I'm looking for a motion, and then did we want to, was there suggestions, right? For
Mitigation, that they complete the mitigation plan that they're working on with the.
Mr. Chair, I think that's what we need you to confirm. Is it going to be Soil and Water's plan or their plan? Because I don't know that they're the same.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what we're figuring.
Yeah, I would. Is that what you're planning on doing, or?
We're planning, well, my understanding from working with Zach is that he was working with Nick Newman, and they had that plan that I had laid out, that 6 to 10 feet of the lake shore plus the 25 trees and add the natural grasses and wildflowers. That's the plan we're working from.
So Nick Newman is with Environmental Services and Soil and Water is a different entity. So what I have on the screen, we just had to make sure that everyone's on the same page with what's going to happen here. So this is the recommendation that this all be buffer. So is that your understanding from working with Zach?
No, my understanding is it would be 6 to 10 feet from the lake up the hill, and that's 50 feet. So that takes all the way up the hill.
So that's what the Board of Adjustment needs to decide. If you're going to support the variance with their request or with Soil and Water's recommendations.
So the part of that buffer zone, we'd be replacing the grass with a deeper rooted, they say it's a low grow or slow grow grass. It would still have to be mowed once a month, but that buffer, what Soil and Water, I believe they said, was it would be a no-mow zone. And so we thought that the compromise would be if we do the low with the deeper grass, that we'd be willing to do that, and the additional 40 feet in that buffer.
Mr. Chair, question for staff. Is grass or the deep-rooted plants would be more protective of the bluff?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, so native plants typically have a deeper root structure, so those are going to be more apt to kind of keep things in place than like your regular turf grass. Now, without knowing what they're proposing to plant, I can't say whether it's a native grass or whether it is just a regular turf grass. So again, this comes up to you guys. If you're going to grant the variance and you want to place a condition, you guys can defer to this, you can defer to their plan, or you can come up with whatever you guys would like to do. If you don't like the 50, you could say 30. If it's up to you guys if you're going to grant the variance and place the conditions. So.
And Jamie, can I have a clarification point here? I thought Nick Newman was in Soil and Water Conservation.
No, he's not. He's in our office. Soil and Water is Greg Berg. And so anytime somebody asks for a variance to be closer to the lake than what's allowed, or if it's in a bluff, we ask Soil and Water Conservation District to go out and make a recommendation. Yep. And that's basically what he did, and it's up to the board to decide, do we want to go with this recommendation? Are they okay with just your plan? Do they maybe want to do a combination of both? It's totally their decision, and it's not something that's required by Soil and Water Conservation District. It's strictly a recommendation. If the variance is granted, they have the option to do a condition. So.
Yeah, I was just confused. I thought Nick was in Soil and Water.
Yeah, no. So. Nick is actually in our office here at Stearns County.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I would just also note that the second recommendation or consideration from Soil and Water was our engineered stormwater management plan. So I don't know if you saw that or not, but add that to your list of items you're going to require or not require.
What is the general consensus of the board? Any discussion on this of what we wish to require or not require?
I would require it because
the Soil and Water plan?
Suggest that we require the soil and water conservation plan.
Okay, and then Dave, you're in agreement with that?
I would say that.
What do you think, Bonnie?
Because we are disturbing more of the bluff. This way we would protect the slope part of the bluff.
Just so I can get perspective of, can you go back to that picture that's got the green lines? Yeah. Now, if we go with that, it basically takes the entire backyard of the house. No, if we go with the 50 feet.
But it's going down.
That's the lake
That's
side.
only because they're building the deck out into the impact.
Mr. Chair, can you all please speak in your microphone still? And then I don't know if the public hearing's open or closed at this point.
Closed.
I just have concerns with, with limiting, that looks almost like 25% of, I'm just throwing a number out there, but 25% of the lot within the green area is converted to a no mow buffer zone.
So I'll offer a counterpoint here. So Nick, I don't know Nick, but if he proposed the solution to this, it must have been a viable solution, right? He's done this before.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we don't propose solutions. Nick met with their contractor to talk about a project that they wanted to do.
Okay.
And so Nick did not come up with a design for anything. He just met with them and said, okay, this is what you're looking at doing. This is the type of permit it's going to be, whether it's going to be a major shoreline alteration permit or a minor permit. So Nick didn't have any hand in the design of this at all. It's all been done by lake-friendly lawn care and landscaping.
Okay, I needed that. I needed that clarified.
Yeah, sure.
And so, soil and water conservation has not seen this plan done by the landscaping, right?
Correct. Like I said, at this point, Nick has not even really seen a drawn plan. He's talked on site with their contractor and got an idea of what they wanted to do, but we have nothing on paper yet that specifies exactly what the plan is. The only thing that we've received in writing is this estimate with the materials and the labor. And so I can't say whether or not it's going to be a good plan or if there's going to be, changes to it because we have not seen a plan yet.
So is it a possibility we could, if we decide to approve this, to say, because it sounds like you want to go with your plan that the landscaper has, right?
Well,
that's
yes.
the preferred.
I mean, that was the preferred. That we would by his recommendations and his advice. And my confusion is I thought he was talking to soil and water and had approval.
So if we could approach this to say, okay, their plan that they have put together, if it's approved by soil and water as a viable plan, they could go with that.
Mr. Chair, Soil and Water isn't going to approve their plan. So I don't think you were on the board yet, George, when this all started, but the Board of Adjustment for many years would place conditions on variances saying, enact a best management practice, do whatever Soil and Water wants us to do. Well, they're not regulatory, they're technical guidance. So what the Board of Adjustment and our office and Soil and Water came up with, and Greg came and spoke to all of you last year, I think it was, about this whole procedure. So you can either take or leave their plan, but we aren't going to be asking them to review Sedansky's plan and give comments on it because their recommendation is the no-mo on the entire, as what is shown here. Again, the other option is to require an engineered stormwater management plan. So again, just don't put something back on them because they've offered their opinion and they don't, as it states in the letter, indicate if it should be approved or denied. That's your job.
Right. This is their opinion.
Correct.
We can do whatever we like to do.
Yeah, but they're offering that opinion as the technical experts, right?
So if you would want that, then I would recommend you continue the item and then Sedansky would come up with their official plan and give Soil and Water time to review it, and then they could give you their recommendation on if that plan is adequate compared to this plan.
That sounds like what I was thinking. If we could, at this point, we're just guessing what everybody's plans are
we don't
going
have-
to be. If we could
we're not
continue
looking-
this until these people can get together and look at each other's plans and
So I would ask the applicant, sounds like if we're going to do something tonight, we'd go with the soil and water buffer. Do you prefer to wait and see what your plan comes out with? Or do you have a time frame you want to move out on it?
Yeah, I think it would put our plan potentially in jeopardy if we, had to continue. So I don't know the details of enough of what that no-mow zone is, what grass would look. I guess I picture sort of like a wild-looking field right in front of our cabin looking at the lake, rather than that, 1.5-foot grass for the 10 feet of shore. We already leave the shore unmowed to try to mitigate some of the erosion. We've done that since we've been at the cabin, so we're just trying to enhance that even more.
I have a question for staff. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there any way that we can partially approve this as far as so that they could go ahead with construction and carry over the stipulations that we put on for the mitigation plan?
I'm not sure if I understand. So you're either approving it in whole or part or not.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I mean, I'm just thinking of their construction timeline, to let them go ahead and start construction on the house and by the next month get the mitigation plan or the landscaping plan down. But I'm guessing we can't do that.
Right, because again, then you're putting Stearns County Environmental Services and Soil and Water in the position of making a decision on what should happen out here, not you.
But I meant if they brought it back, we can't
No.
approve part of it and then have them bring back the other part. All right,
Yes.
that's what I thought, but I'd ask the question.
Mr. Chairman, my comment would be that we're asked to approve something that we don't know what it is. And it's hard to make that choice. If we say we'll go with a different plan, but we don't have, that is a bona fide good plan. We don't have anything. We're choosing to let someone decide what they want to do or what the recommendation is.
Well, that's why I asked the applicants kind of for their decision here. Do you want to wait or do you want us to move forward?
I was hoping that there could be some compromise. I know our neighbor just to the north had recently been approved for a 4-season porch. They're even closer to the lake, and they had no mitigation requirements at all. And so we're trying to be proactive and come up with a plan that the recommendation from our landscaper, who's done good work, so we were trying to get ahead of it and make that happen. So we were surprised when this 50-foot buffer zone came in. It goes right to the front of the deck, and
you visited the property.
If you visited the property,
Yeah. So what? I can't make a decision for the board. I'm just saying I'm bringing this out, offering you an option to wait 30 days so your plan can be considered, and then you can get a decision. I'm putting you on the spot. For sure.
I understand.
For sure. And I have reservations about what you said about right off the deck. You could have grass that are 5 feet tall.
I have one more question for staff. If we were to approve this tonight with the soil and water conservation recommendation, and could they come back at a future time and ask for a change of their variance for a different plan? Could they ask for request another variance to the condition? To change the condition?
Mr. Chair, they could propose to amend it It would, but they would have to upfront give us the cash for what this plan on the screen would call for. And so they would have to do it sooner than later in terms of, you know, likely next construction season. Obviously, if you're going to try to start construction this year, you're not going to be doing your final grade till next year. So then 2023 is when you'd have to
They
make
could
that
come back and
decision.
ask for it, or a change to the condition?
It would be to amend the
Amend it.
variance to change a condition.
But they would not need to pay for the whole process
Yes,
again.
and just to be, the variance application fee is likely going to be going up considerably in 2023. So it's going to be more than $550.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I may, really quick. So the buffer he's proposing, they get to choose the vegetation that goes in there. And so they can certainly work with their contractor and say, hey, we don't want wild 12-foot high growing grass. You know, another thing to keep in mind is if you guys don't want to go with a 50-foot buffer, you could say a 25-foot buffer. So there are ways of working this without putting it off, possibly. I mean, you guys do what you want. I'm just reminding you that it says if he recommends a 50-foot buffer, it could be 30, it could be 25, it could be 55. You guys could increase it if you want. So there are other ways of making this work. And keep in mind that he says native plant species, they get to choose. We don't specify it has to be this, this, or this. They're going to have a whole list of native plant species that they can talk with their lake-friendly lawn care landscaping contractor and say, this is what we're wanting in this area. I mean, we're going to have a plan. They're going to, with their construction site permit, they're going to have to provide us with the plan of whatever you guys choose, and it's going to have the vegetation that they're choosing to put in there and the number and whatever. But it's not like we're saying you have to have 12-foot tall grass and it's going to block everything.
Okay.
So, but again, it's totally up to you guys. I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of the different options that you guys have at your disposal.
Mr. Chair, one other consideration is, so if you think of best management practices when lessening the impact on the lake, you have infiltration and you have filtration, right? So filtration is this. Infiltration would be an engineered stormwater basin or something like that. So, you know, what I'm hearing the applicants say is they don't want all this high green grass in front of their cabin. Now, what Jamie said is absolutely true. They get to choose. There's thousands of kinds of native grasses out there, native plants, etc. The other alternative would be an engineered stormwater management plan. They hire an engineer and they design something that, you know, maybe goes up in this area. The grading is such that there's a rain garden type situation. Now that is going to be considerably more expensive, but that isn't a consideration that the Board of Adjustment needs to make. So there's some give and take on both sides, and definitely some options.
So may I ask a question?
Yes.
So, as a compromise, we were talking about the native grasses being that first 10 feet, and plants and flowers plus all the trees, 25 trees along the shoreline. And then if we say that buffer zone becomes 40-foot low mow zone, still a deep-rooted species, it wouldn't be a complete no, but it'd be a higher grass, but not a complete no mow zone. Is that a reasonable compromise?
If everyone on the board and the applicants have read the Stearns County Soil Water Conservation District letter that's attached here, paragraph number 2, from a technical standpoint, the routing of the stormwater over the bluff, even with the now mow buffer of vegetation in place, could become an issue: oversaturation and potential slope failure. So I'm assuming they base that 50-foot buffer zone on preventing that slope failure.
I guess then it comes to their deciding if they want to have, like it says down here, they could deal with they could have an engineered stormwater plan, which is going to cost a bunch of money. And then that would that take all of it or part of it?
A question for staff. How far is this soil and water plan from the house? Or from the deck?
Well, what would be the distance from the deck to the shore, and then just subtract the 50 feet?
That's what I was gonna do,
Yeah.
but I gotta grab the to-scale copy of the.
We gave them a choice of either the soil or the stormwater management, you know.
So from the ordinary high water level to the closest point of the deck, we have 60 feet, or 61.6 is what it says on the survey here. So if you're requiring a 50-foot buffer, they will literally have, 11 feet 6 inches between the deck and the buffer.
So I'm gonna throw a suggestion out here that we go with the soil and water, but instead of 50 feet, 30 feet.
You know, George, I was reading, that's what I was thinking, the same line.
Yep.
And in between.
What is the general consensus? I mean,
I would say 45, but.
You have to remember that the only reason they only have 12 feet is there because they're bringing the deck out, where it's not supposed to be by ordinance.
Mayor, who supports 30 feet?
I'll support 30.
There, I'm 30.
I'm 30.
I'm 30.
I'd say 40.
I'll go with 40. I'd go with 40.
Or too much?
Well, George is the one that brought this start, so.
I'm sticking with 30. I could be outvoted, but we'll see.
I'd say, because then we're kind of in between, halfway.
Yeah.
I'd stick with 30, I guess, myself. Bonnie?
Yeah, I'd stick with 30.
Okay.
Compromise 35?
We're not playing
Sounds like
poker here.
American Pickers or something.
Well, that's the way
That's the
what you call
American
negotiating,
way. That's
right?
the American way. And can we ask the applicant, hearing our discussion, is there a direction as far as either 30 feet or the stormwater management plan?
I gotta be honest, I'm afraid of the cost for the engineered plan, so
Right.
30 feet seems, the 30 feet buffer, that seems more doable, and it's probably closer to what we have in place right now. Well,
Because I'm guessing, just
yeah,
my
look at
feeling
that.
is how I would vote was either the 30 feet or the engineered plan.
30 feet, thank you very much.
That would be my, I can't speak for the rest, but that's what I would go with, one of those two.
So it appears there's a majority for 30 at least. Is that, so with that 30 in mind, if there's a majority for that, can I look for a motion to approve this variance?
Sure, I can, I'll make a motion. I would move to construct a new residential dwelling deck and screen porch 7 feet from the right of the way of Langvine Drive, classified as a township road, ahead of the established building line and 3 feet from the top of a bluff and in the bluff impact zone, with the condition that you go with the Soil and Water's recommendation with the reduction from 50 to 30 feet setback, or 30 feet no mow zone.
All right, there's
Using the native plantings that are on the approved list.
I'll second.
Okay, second from George. Dave?
No.
I'm a yes. Rob?
No.
Ken?
Yes.
All right, therefore, in the majority, your motion does pass. Questions, please do contact staff during regular business hours. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to item number 5, Jody Allman from Hugo, with a request from section 9.9.9A1 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a 10-foot by 20-foot screen porch addition on the existing residential dwelling less than 10 feet to a side property line. Said ordinance requires a structure setback of 10 feet to a side property line. Affected property outlook E, less west or 150 feet and less than eastern 40.4 feet of Lot 13 of Kruger's subdivision, part of Government Lot 3, Section 34, in Painesville Township, and the property address is 27583 Brookhaven Road in Painesville, Minnesota. And then can I get your name and address for the public record, please?
Jody Alwyn, P.O. Box 516, Hugo, Minnesota.
Thank you very much. And staff, your report, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, those who visited the site, okay.
All the affirmative except for George for the public record.
Okay, thank you. The applicant currently owns a portion of Outlot E and Lot 13 of Kruger's subdivision of Government Lot 3 in Painesville Township on Lake Coronis. Kruger's subdivision of Government Lot 3 was platted in 1927. The tract contains 9,110 square feet of lot area per the survey provided by the applicant, of which 8,350 square feet lies between Brookhaven Road and Lake Coronis. The property is in an R1 zoning district. The applicant purchased the property in 2003. There is an existing 476 square foot residential dwelling that was constructed in 1940 per the Stearns County Assessor's records prior to the official controls. There is also a 360 square foot accessory structure that was constructed prior to the official controls. 2 decks were permitted and constructed in 2003. In 1980, the previous owners applied for and were granted a variance to construct an 8 by 20 enclosed porch addition in the same location as the current request. That proposed addition was never constructed. The existing subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling consists of a holding tank that was permitted and constructed in 2003. A compliance inspection was completed on the system by a licensed septic inspector in April of 22. The system was determined to be compliant. The property is in the 100-year floodplain of Coronis Lake. The flood fringe area standards require a proposed addition to be constructed to meet the regulatory flood protection elevation on fill, or a conditional use permit be applied for the use of alternative elevation methods. The property is in the shoreland and floodplain overlay district of Coronis Lake, which is classified general development. Coronis is on the list of impaired waters for mercury and fish. The current impervious lot coverage for the portion of the property between the road and the lake is approximately 21.5%. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project is complete will be about 24.2%. Painesville Township, Coronis Lake Association, North Fork of the Crow River Watershed District, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request, and we have not received any correspondence with regards to this request.
All right, an applicant to your request.
Yes, thank you again for having me. My parents bought this cabin in 1975, and per our earlier discussion about 70s, 80s, and 90s, not a lot of structures being done without permits. My father was not one of them. He wanted, there's 5 of us kids, so he had planned on doing an addition exactly where it is now, our plan proposed to be. And they ended up purchasing a new home instead, so the addition was never done for obvious reasons. But they always lamented about not putting in their porch. They were going to do a full-on addition. I'm proposing just the screened-in porch, and they kind of lamented about not doing that. So I purchased the cabin from them in 2003, per stated, and because I am my father's daughter, I did decks via permit. So anyway, I would like to do, I lost both my parents very recently, and I'd like to honor their 42-year-old idea and do a screened-in porch instead of an addition. I just would prefer a porch. I have no interest in staying here in the winter. So, thank you.
All right, board members, questions, comments for staff or the applicant?
I just have a comment that if nobody in that neighborhood put anything within 5 feet of the property line, there would be nothing built in that neighborhood.
Correct. You are correct.
Everybody's building seems to come right up to the property line, or.
And I'm still at the existing cabin size compared to others.
Chairman Abbott, just for the record, I did speak with the applicant when I did the site visit, just for a second to confirm which side of the house the screen porch was going on, but have you talked to your neighbor on that side?
Absolutely.
And do you have anything that shows they were for or against, or?
They didn't say either way.
Okay.
But yeah, they're aware. They're absolutely aware. But yeah, they're fine with it because they can't be against it.
I remember their shed is about a foot away from the property line.
Well, and when I look at the difference, when you look at the distance between the 2 sheds, between your shed and their shed, there's only about 8 feet, is what I. So
on the west side,
toward the road, you have a shed and they have a shed.
Yeah, I just didn't.
And there's only like 8 feet in between
the west or
less.
the east neighbor. That's why I guess I meant.
Oh, the neighbor on the same side as the addition would be.
Yep.
And I guess my understanding from the county's guidelines of the 10-foot setback, some of that purpose was to make sure that emergency vehicles could get through, like fire trucks and that type of thing that you'd have. And we're already limited on that side of the house to something 8 foot wide. Right. And I think there's a tree in between too, isn't there?
No, the tree is now gone.
Oh, the tree is now gone. But I mean, so 8 feet is the most that they would have now. So you would be greater distance between you and the front of their house than the 8 feet by putting it where it is. So I don't see objections to that.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I may really quickly, if you would look up at the survey there, the shed that you're seeing on the west side is actually a fish house.
Oh,
and so
it's movable.
It meets the criteria
and it's
of
permitted,
the fish house.
or
It's permitted, it's licensed, it has reflectors, it has all the things to meet the requirements of a fish house. So that's why it's not in the staff report as being a shed.
Okay. I guess when
It
I
is
was
not
there and
permanent.
looked at it, I just
Right.
saw, well,
And-
look at how close they are.
Right.
It's not going to make a
Right,
difference.
and I just wanted to
But that's
clarify
not a
that, so
movable-
everybody is aware
not a
that
storage shed,
it's not
that's a-
something that was done without a permit or anything like that.
Okay.
It's licensed as a fish house.
Okay, so that is portable.
That's being stored there.
Okay, then my reasoning is out the window.
Correct.
So one of the comments I would have is what has happened in the past is not pertinent to me. when you have standards and things have not been built yet, I believe our objective is to go by what the standards are. It's not been built, so we can enforce the standards of 10 feet. So it's something to consider. That's where I come from.
Any other comments, questions from board members for staff or the applicant? Hearing none, asking for anyone from the public wishing to speak to this matter. Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the matter? Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the matter? Hearing none, looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Motion from Ken. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Second from Dave. All those in favor of moving to close the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to our findings of facts questions here. Question number 1. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Well, this would be lakeshore residential, and screened-in porches would be allowed.
Yes from Bonnie for number 1. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yeah.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 1. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to say no. It's in harmony with the other structures are there, but it doesn't abide by the standards of 10 feet. So I'm a no.
Okay, George is a no. Dave?
I'd say it'd have to be a no.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
I'm a yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
I'm a yes.
Yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to say it would be consistent with the comprehensive plan based on the goal of lakeshore living.
It would be consistent?
Yes.
Okay. Yes from George. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to say yes. A screened-in porch is a reasonable use of the property.
All right, a yes from George. Dave?
I would say no for the reason that it might affect the neighbor's property value someday.
Okay. I'm a yes. Bonnie?
I'm a yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
I'm a yes.
Yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Well, I think what's unique is that on this lake, the lot, many of these lots were made so extremely narrow that it's really impossible to try to do anything that fits the standards of today. When the lots were designed, the standards of today didn't exist. So I would say yes.
Okay, yes from Bonnie. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains an essential character of the locality, yes or no? And if you look at the structures nearby, it's pretty darn similar to what they've got over there. I mean, it seems
That's
fairly
what I
common.
would say. The other neighbors have.
Yep. So I'm a yes and Ken is a yes. George?
I'm a no.
Dave?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And Rob?
Yes.
Yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I would say yes. Economic considerations was not part of this.
All right, Dave?
Yes.
Yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 7, all questions being answered in the affirmative, looking for a motion to approve the variance request.
Mr. Chair, I will move to approve to construct a 10-foot by 22-foot screen porch addition onto the existing residential dwelling 5 feet to a side property line.
And I'll second that. Remaining votes, Dave?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right.
But do we need, there's one suggested condition, and that was to require the condition that a conditional use permit be applied for to use alternative elevation methods other than fill. But that needs to be included in the, in our motion.
It's already in the works.
Is that, you want to put that as an amendment in there?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
All right, with that amended, is that,
Well, then we
what
would,
kind did you?
then whoever seconded it has
Yep,
to
and I'll,
agree, and then
yep, that's fine with
re-vote.
me. All right, back to voting again in our remainder of votes. Dave?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, now your motion passes.
I have one clarification. In this versus what you read, Jamie, it says 10 by 20 in here, and that's what was just approved. So.
The plans were actually 10 by 22, and I had an error when I put that in there. So you'll want to change that and
Not closer to the neighbor. It's the
put it 10 by 22. It's going to be longer. It's just going to meet the length of the house. Originally, she had thought she had a 20-foot wide cabin. And so when I was talking on the phone, I went with 10 by 20, and her application had 10 by 20. But the building plans that the contractor submitted was 10 by 22 because she had wanted it to go the entire side of the home.
The motion I made was 10 by 22.
Oh, did you? Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't hear that.
Yep.
You have 10 by 22 on this sheet.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's 10 by 20 on this
We're
sheet.
good. Again,
Go to
That's why I thought I
22
heard
feet.
20.
You don't have to stop this much short.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair,
Again,
members of the
your
board.
variance passes. Any questions, please contact staff during regular business hours.
I thought you heard.
All right, agenda item number 6, request from Rock and Gail Ruland, Richmond, Minnesota, from section 6.95 of Stearns County zoning ordinance 439 to permit a dwelling 484 feet from an animal feedlot. Said ordinance requires a setback of 700-foot setback from a dwelling of an animal feedlot registered for 100 animal units or more. And the affected property, 7.24 acres, lot 1, block 1, Haney Estates, section 12, Township 122 in Eden Lake Township, and the address is 18053 State Highway 22, Richmond, Minnesota. And then can I get your names and addresses for the public record, please?
Gail Ruland, 18053 State Highway 22, Richmond, Minnesota 56368.
Rock Ruland, 18053 State Highway 22, Richmond, Minnesota.
Thank you very much. And staff to your report.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The request of the applicant is an after-the-fact variance to permit a residential dwelling located 484 feet from a feedlot that's registered for 100 animal units or more. The Stearns County ordinance requires a 700-foot setback to a registered or to a feedlot registered for 100 animal units or more. Sorry, I meant to ask, did any of the members have a chance to visit the site?
All in the affirmative sits for George for the public record.
Just some background on this site. It is 7.24 acres in size in Eden Lake Township. Just a note, in a couple spots in the staff report, it is noted as Eden Valley, but it is Eden Lake. That was a mistake on my part. The applicant is proposing to permit an existing shed as a residential structure. The 480-foot residential dwelling setback, that's a 31% deviation from the required 700-foot setback. And the residential structure, including the attached garage, would measure 50 by 62 feet. And there was a variance granted back in 2018, and this was requested by Rock Ruland and Gary and Anita Hinges to construct a residential structure 550 feet, and that request was granted for that distance in 2018, and those meeting minutes are included in the staff report just for reference. The surrounding parcels are zoned A40 to the east and south, and R1 about 376 feet to the west. There is a septic located on the northwest side of the parcel, and this parcel does have a registered feedlot. Just to note, the maximum animal units is only 2 for the site. The closest feedlot is currently registered for 100 animal units and was last registered on June 8th, 2021. And the applicant purchased this property in October of 2018. And I did not receive any correspondence, and I will just read the, one second. The alternatives or recommended conditions. Number 1 would be to grant or deny the variance request based on the findings of fact, or 2, build 550 feet from the neighboring feedlot as was granted in 2018. And one other typo, just to mention, on a couple of the maps, I must have typed a 6 instead of a 5, so the parcel ID, there's a mistake on those on the bottom of the map, just to note. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Applicants, to your request. Anything you wish to say?
Yeah,
Yep.
so basically, yeah, exactly what we said. We'd like to basically consider the existing building our residence.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the boards for the staff or applicants?
I have a question for the applicant. So what is this building now? What is it? Is it a shed or what is it?
It's a garage. Then there's like a small apartment or basically a wash area, basically, and a shower.
Has anybody ever lived it in the past?
We have been staying there.
Yes. Not full time, just
no.
Temporary.
We are what winter Texans or whatever you want to call it.
Mr.
We don't stick around in the winter.
Mr. Chair, so Rock gets homesteaded though, correct?
Yeah, because we do not, we are there
Yeah,
a
we are
majority of the
homestead in
year.
Minnesota, yeah.
So therefore, we go to Texas at about 3 months out of the year.
How long have you owned it?
20.
The land we've owned about 3 years, and then the building was constructed after that.
Yes.
And then we owned a property just down the road from there, and we sold that property. We split it out, sold it, and then we moved there.
Yes.
So you have lived in this structure
Yeah.
over the last, 3 years, 4 years?
No.
Occasionally.
A year.
About a year.
About a year.
It was like-
Approximately a year.
Was it August 2nd we sold our house?
Yeah, August 20th of 2020. 2020? It's so,
I'm just trying to.
it's been a blur.
I'm
Yeah,
just
we've
trying
done a
to
lot.
frame this to say,
Yeah.
now you've come in and you want a variance to live in this house
Yeah.
full time.
Yeah, because our intent actually was to, potentially build.
Yeah, the idea
But then
was-
we basically moved into the structure and then found it to be very, adequate for our needs. And then in the meantime, then we're able to do much more with the grounds that we were hoping to do, a house on. And now I actually, for a change, I actually get to garden.
That's fine. Thank you. That's all I have.
The intention initially was to build a house
Yeah.
just a little bit north of where the existing building is.
700 feet, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
Well-
that was the original permit was 584 feet, and
550 feet.
yes, yes. And in the meantime, though, we've gotten very comfortable with the situation, and now I get to plant a garden and actually take care of it. It's awesome.
Okay, and I'd just like to state, I was on the board when this permit was originally granted for the 550 feet.
Yep.
And at that time, there was discussion on the board about how this would affect the farm that's directly across the road and their ability to expand. And, so it was permitted for 550 feet for the house that was to be built behind this shed.
Yes.
And now this would be encroaching further on the farm.
And just to clarify, I'm a farm girl. And anyone who has any problems with a feedlot and any farmer wanting to basically uphold his career and his living, they'd have problems more with me than they would the farmer.
Well, and I applaud that because we're farmers too. But if they would want to expand, even if you were, in agreement to it, they would need to get a conditional use permit or a variance in order to expand.
Yeah.
So it does limit what they can do, and this would further limit them by an additional, 66 feet than what was originally they were originally given that. But just to kind of state that so the board knows what the history, because I believe a few of you were on the board at that time, but many of you were not, so.
I have a question for the applicant. Who's Gary and Anita Henches?
They originally owned that property. We purchased it from them.
But you're all three mentioned in the
Yeah.
original variance
I believe
application.
At that time, had not transferred.
The title.
The purchase had not been done at that time.
Yeah.
Because
So I
just
believe.
didn't understand. It kind of looked like the three of you owned the property.
No.
Mr. Chair.
So you owned it at the time? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, I can help clarify that. It's not uncommon when someone is looking to purchase a property that they might have a design and a plan for what they want to do with the property. So in that case, the application has to be signed by the current property owner as well as the potential buyer that has the plans. So that's the situation there.
Thank you. So you were actually the one that was going to build the house that the variance was granted for?
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I don't know if it has any bearing, but we drove by and the farm that is listed for 100 animal units, we couldn't see any animals there. The feedlot looked bare. The feed bunks were sitting out there. The cement was bare. So how long has it been? I guess they just renewed it, so they must have thoughts of buying animals at some point in time. But at this point in time, there aren't any animals there that I could see.
From my understanding is that he just didn't want to
Just
lose
wants to
that.
maintain it so
ability.
that if he does sell, that the next
Because
buyer.
he's getting a little bit older and his grandkids might take over someday and they might want to raise cattle, so he doesn't want to lose that.
Yeah.
Okay, Becky, can you do that? Can you just keep it going, or do you need animals?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, when a feedlot registers, they're required to register or update their registration every 4 years. And so that registration is for the maximum held on site at any one time in the last 5 years. So they can have animals there for a short period and maintain their feedlot registration and that right to continue to restock the animals. Does that help clarify?
Nope, that answers it.
But question for staff, if the neighbor, the Greenuses, do sell and the new owner wants to expand the feedlot, he's going to be under restrictions if that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the board, if this variance is granted then and a new owner wanted to expand to the north, or even the current owner, they would have to get a variance approved before being able to do that.
And I just have one question. I had, and just reading through this, was there something to, that even if this house didn't exist, the farm would have needed a variance because of other?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I believe what you're thinking of is it would have needed a conditional use permit because of being located within shoreline.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments, staff or the applicant? Hearing none, anyone from the audience wishing to speak to this request? Anyone from the audience wishing to speak to the request? And anyone wishing to speak to the request? Hearing none, looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Ken moves to close the public hearing. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Second from George. All those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion does carry. Now moving to our questions of the finding of facts. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Well, it's in an A40 and an R1 zone, and houses would be permitted in that area.
All right, a yes from Bonnie. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number one. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intents of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say no. By approving that variance for the residents, you're going to be placing restrictions on the agriculture across the road.
Okay, George?
I'm a no.
Dave?
I would have to say I'm a no.
I'm a no. Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes.
And Ken?
I'll say yes.
Number two is a no. Number three, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go with no. The comp plan wants Stearns County to promote agriculture, not put more restrictions on it.
Okay, George?
I'm a yes on that one.
Dave?
I'd be a no.
I'm a no. Bonnie?
I'm going to be a yes for the reason that there was plans for a house was permitted on that spot, which would have had limited agriculture. So I'm going to be a yes.
That's a wash. That's a tie. Correct?
Yeah, and on these.
Yep, and that's, yep. Number four, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner.
Mr. Chair, I would say yes. Living in that structure would be using it in a reasonable manner because it has the accommodation. It's built to do that.
Right, Dave?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number four. Number five, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
I would have to say this was created by the landowner because he didn't build the house that he had agreed to build first time around.
Okay, no from Ken. George?
I'm a no.
Dave?
I'm a no.
I'm a no. Bonnie?
No.
And Rob?
No.
No for number five. Number six, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Well, as far as character of the locality, it's residential and rural. A house in a rural area is within the character, so I would say yes on that one.
Okay, George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jaime, yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
I'll say yes on that one. As far as I do believe economics were somewhat involved, but they had indicated that a house was going to meet their needs, and so I believe it would be a yes.
All right, George?
I'm a yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jaime, yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 7. So not all the questions were answered in the affirmative, so by statute, I would be looking for a motion for denial for the variance request. And I look for a motion for, and second for denial.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we deny the variance for an we deny an after-fact variance to permit a residential dwelling 484 feet from a feedlot that is registered for 100 animal units or more.
Okay. Motion from Rob. Second.
I'll second it.
Second from Ken. Remaining votes. George?
Nay.
You wish to support? Okay. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes, I made the motion.
Yep. And then so the motion is denied. Any questions, talk to staff during regular business hours and we'll see what can be done to fix it. Thank you. And number 7, final item on the agenda for tonight, to consider a variance request from Andrew and Rochelle Squara, Holdingford, Minnesota, from section 6.95 of Stearns County Zoning Ordinance 439 to permit a feedlot located 525 feet from a residence and 130 feet from a non-agricultural district boundary. Said ordinance requires a 700-foot setback from a residence to an animal feedlot registered for 100 animal units or more, and a 350-foot setback from a feedlot registered for 10 animal units or more to a non-agricultural district boundary. The eastern half of the northeastern quarter of the northwestern quarter of Section 7, Township 126 in Brockway Township, and the address is 13137 County Road 17 in Holdingford. And can I get your name and address for the public record, please?
Andy Sierra, 13137, County Road 17, Holdingford, Minnesota, 56340.
All right, and staff to report.
Chair, members of the board, did anyone have a chance to visit this site? And any communication while on site?
And I'll answer it in the affirmative except for George.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit a feedlot with 151.8 animal units and maintain 2 structures and 3 open lots on this site. The feedlot's located 525, 539, and 684 feet from the 3 closest neighboring residences. The ordinance does require a 700-foot setback from a residence to an animal feedlot registered for 100 animal units or more. The owner is also requesting a reduction in the non-agricultural district boundary setback to 130 feet. The ordinance requires a 350-foot setback to a non-ag district boundary from a registered feedlot, or from a feedlot registered for 10 animal units or more. Just some background on the site. The property is 20 acres in size. Brockway Township and zoned A40. The 520-foot setback reduction, the 520-foot feedlot to residence setback is a 25% deviation from the required 700-foot. The 539-foot feedlot to residence setback is a 23% deviation, and the requested 680-foot feedlot to residence setback is a 2% deviation from the required 700-foot setback. And as far as the non-agricultural district boundary request of 130 feet, that would be a 63% deviation from the required 350-foot setback. Staff was on site in August of 2021 and deemed the site non-compliant due to the unpermitted feedlot areas. The applicant is proposing to permit an existing 120 by 18-foot barn. This is just the east side of the shed shown up there. It's a lean off the side, so not the whole building is being permitted. And it has 2 open lots attached, as you can see. Number 1, 44 by 120 foot open lot, and an 18 by 44 open lot. And then also number 2, which is a 45 by 15-foot barn with a 45 by 40-foot attached open lot. Yeah, there, maybe you can see it a little bit better. So the orange areas are the proposed areas to be used as feedlot, and the rest would be pasture. Part of structure number 1 was in existence prior to the year 2000. Since 2000, the feedlot has expanded structure number 1 and added structure number 2. When I was on site, the applicant had 1 horse, 1 donkey, 1 mini horse, 6 goats, 1 pig, and 20 ducks for a total of 3.8 animal units. And they are requesting to be permitted for a max of the 151.8 as mentioned before, which would consist of 2 ponies, 1 horse, and 1,500 sheep. The feedlot is currently not registered or permitted. Without the variances, the feedlot is limited to 9.9 animal units. Their alternatives or recommended conditions would be to grant or number 1 would be to grant or deny the variance request based on the findings of fact. Number 2, the applicant could request to permit the feedlot for the 9.9 animal units or less, which would eliminate the need for either variance. Number 3, the applicant could request to permit the feedlot for 99.99 animal units or less, which would eliminate the need for the residential dwelling setback variance. There were no correspondence received for this application, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Applicant, to your request.
Yes, basically I'm just requesting to use the existing buildings we did already, or that were here being used kind of. And on the east side of the property, that's all farmland that we actually farm right now. There's field and then woods that we rent out from the neighbors, which is, I think, total of 54 acres. His property kind of surrounds the town. And, yeah, just, I want to use the same stuff rather than taking away farm field and other good property.
All right, thank you. Board members, questions for staff or the applicant?
I have a question for the applicant. Not being a farmer, but
yes,
is there a tipping point for the number of animals you have for your profit? Can you go with the lower animal units rather than the 1,500 sheep?
Yes, probably could. I was just kind of keeping it open Because honestly, I'm not at that point to go that big, but I'd like to keep it open for an option to go that big, is why I'm after that. And if I would buy any more property, then I'd like to be able to have that open for that point.
So you don't actually have the plans set in place to acquire
expand
those
that,
1,500 sheep?
No. I mean, right now, just with the structures and stuff, you could, well, no, I shouldn't even say that. A lot of that would be outdoor then. But yeah, to go that big, it'd be a long stretch.
Then a question for staff. What's the next step 3 years down the road if he wants to go from that 99 unit to the 150 unit? Come back in for variance, or?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, members of the board, yeah, an additional variance would be required at that time. When a feedlot's registered for less than 100 animal units, the setback to residences is only 500 feet. So that would be an option, but he's just planning ahead, thinking if I do go to that 100 or more this way, I don't have to come back for another request. But he would be okay. Obviously, he might have to get a feedlot permit at some point for another structure if he would need more housing.
But in the meantime, if he goes with the 100 or the 99, those 3 houses are safe.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the board, that is correct. They would all meet the 500, or he would meet the 500-foot setback for those 3 houses if he stayed at 999 animal units or less.
Thank you.
It'd still be within the 350 feet of the city, right? 'Cause that seems to be.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the board, correct. That setback applies to feedlots of 10 animal units or more. So go ahead, sorry.
It's a non-ag cultural district setback, not city.
Right,
It's like a crossover, if I understand. Like it could be agriculture or city, from what I understand, could go either way.
No, I'm just saying if he decided to go to the 999, he would still need the variance for that part.
Okay.
Right.
And I guess I'm not real clear. So is the land between him and like where the Polar company is? That's Polar, right? That currently was farmland, but is that zoned agricultural, or is that within city limits, or?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, immediately east of his property is T20, and then you have R5, and then you have a mixture of RT, industrial, and then again R5 to the south of that.
Okay, thank you.
So what technically is transitional?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, yeah, the transitional is kind of a remnant zoning district, but it was meant to be transitioned into non-ag eventually, is my understanding.
Well, I'm saying we have ag and we have industrial, so could it transition into ag, or does it have to transition the other way?
Yeah, I guess I don't have that wording handy for the description of the T20, but regarding animal usage in that area, there's limitations based on the acreage size. Pasturing is allowed, though.
Mr. Chair, I can jump in. So T20 came about at the very end of the county enacting its original zoning ordinance in 2000. And it was basically a compromise for some townships that wanted to be agricultural zoned, but limit the number of animal units. So really T20 is all of the same things as A40, except the animal unit limit.
can I point out across the road, the one farm right across the road, he does have a big or pretty good sized beef operation there, which would actually be closer to town already going on than what I would be at, just to make a note of that. He's closer to Polar and stuff than me.
Any other questions or comments from the board to the applicant or staff? Any more questions, comments?
Open the public
Yep, and if there's, open the public hearing, anyone at all in the audience wishing to speak to the motion at hand? Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Hearing none, a motion to close the public hearing, please.
So moved.
Motion from Bonnie, second.
I'll second.
Second from Dave. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Finding of facts, questions number one, the proposed use. Actually, there are several options that I've been given here. One which would make most sense to me is to have all three there together. I think that kind of stands to reason for what we're looking at, right? I would think. Because that one's to permit a feedlot located 529, 539, and 684 feet from three neighboring residences and 130 feet from a non-agricultural district boundary. Second is to permit a feedlot 529, 539, and 684 from three neighboring residences, and or to permit a feedlot located 130 from a non-agricultural district boundary. That's why I think the three makes sense to me, but. Well, you'd have to deny this one and then go to the two, so, correct? Okay, so those are several options that we would have to pursue should the first one not pass. Am I correct in saying that, right? You'd have to go through the two separately after that, right?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, you could look at them separately, the residential request or the non-ag district boundary request, or put them together, either.
Oh, okay. That's why I would think the three.
Well, with just general discussion or consensus of the board, you know, what are people's feelings about the 150 versus the 99? I think that would determine whether we do one or two.
Sure. Yeah. Any thoughts, feelings?
I'm fine with doing them together.
Yeah, I'm okay with together.
I think I'd be okay with them together.
Is that general consensus then of all together, I assume? Is that okay, Rob? Okay. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Chair, I would say no, because he's not going to maintain the 700-foot separation required.
Okay.
I would say yes, because it's in an ag zone, and feedlots are permitted in ag zones.
Okay, yes from Bonnie. Dave?
I would say yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
No.
And Ken?
This is a yes.
Okay, so that's a tie. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intents of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I would say no, again, because he's not maintaining the 700-foot based on the number of animal units he wants.
Okay. Dave?
I would say we have to preserve agriculture because everybody needs to eat. And I would say that I would say yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
I would say yes.
Rob?
No.
And Ken?
Yes.
Ty. 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I would say yes, it's agricultural use.
Okay. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Having livestock in a agricultural area is a reasonable use. I would say yes.
Okay, Bonnie's yes. George?
I'm a no.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say no. Unfortunately, it's his request for the 151 animal units.
Okay, George?
No.
Dave?
I would say yes, we need to protect the ability to have food for the future.
All right, I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
I would say it's going to keep the houses were there before and the farm was there before. And, you know, probably, I don't know if the houses were there before official controls or after official controls. So they're there and we're gonna have this conflict between agriculture and housing. This is not something that's gonna go away, or even with industry, so I would say yes.
Okay. George?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'd say economics weren't part of the discussion, but economics are going to be part of the battle between agriculture and residential and commercial. And so it's an ongoing process or an ongoing battle.
So yes from you then?
Yes.
Okay. George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 7. So it's a tie for no, right? For these 3 or 2.
I don't know.
If it's a tie vote, does that count as a no? Correct? Yeah, I think that was no as policy, I thought, but because I thought it was, that's what Shell.
Mr. Chair, didn't you have a tie on an earlier item and you just counted it as a tie?
Yes.
We counted as a
You just didn't
no.
consider it as one of the
I believe we consider that
7.
as a no, because that's what we had done before, that's what I had taught, but.
We've never had ties.
Well, we did earlier tonight, didn't we, on one?
Yeah, but
Or,
usually somebody didn't vote in order to keep it majority, you know, so that it
Yeah.
would not be a tie,
well, that was the chair's option, but not a requirement.
not a requirement. It's an
Yeah.
option, but not a requirement.
Yeah, because I know in
Yeah.
previous ones, we hadn't done that earlier.
Because I know that we've never,
Yeah.
sometimes we've re-voted if we've had it.
And we can do that if we need to, or I could abstain again if you want me to redo this, if that would help. Yeah, I'm not sure official policy-wise.
Yeah, I do think, Jacob, that you're right, that it is a no vote. Thinking back to some of the commissioner decisions recently with the tie vote, and there's case law supporting that. This isn't the only question, though, that
There's 2 of them, yep.
were a tie.
Tie, and the
Yeah.
the rest were all yes, 2 were ties.
So
do we want to rediscuss those 2?
I think so,
That's probably the
Mr.
best
Chair.
option, yeah.
I'm not 100% confident in the fact that this would likely deny the variance on something
Sure.
that I'm not positive on is not real comfortable.
Sure, yeah, and yeah. So let's look at 1 and 2 where there were ties. So the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located. I support that because that is the district, I mean, correct? And then,
And what I'd say about that is it says the use. It doesn't say the animal units. It just says the use, and we're talking about a feedlot. So I think under the comprehensive plan, it would be permitted because the use is permitted, feedlots are permitted.
It's permitted if you follow the standards of the separation. That's the key.
but this is the general use, the general, not
General
specific
use,
speaking,
not-
this,
The general use of,
not specific.
It's not,
yeah.
There's got to be.
Specific would be the next question, I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
Okay, there's got to be one of these questions that deals with what the standard is.
Right, and that would be,
Otherwise, the
I think,
standard is
the second one is.
worthless.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's why they ask for a variance.
Mm-hmm.
right. Because if we denied everything because it doesn't meet the standard, there'd be no need
Well,
for this
we're
board.
supposed to use some
Discretion. yeah.
discretion and common sense on this, and could he move his operation to the east?
Well,
I'm just saying,
But this
he
is
could
his
move his
property.
operation on his property and abide by the standard.
I could move it way to the south, but then you'd be wrecking the egg land, which I think would contradict a lot of it.
I just bring it up as a discussion point.
South.
But,
Well,
but he
basically
could reduce the animal units.
Yes, he could do that too.
But the
But I
heart of
think
it,
that probably is question. second
the heart of this
question.
question is just a very general. You know, Robbie voted no, George voted no.
Okay, I have a proposal, you know, if you both have the no votes, that just says you have to vote, you have to have you can't make a motion in favor of it. But if you turn down that motion, then you would have to remake the motion. If 4 people voted against the motion to deny, then you'd remake the motion and you could have 4 people that voted in favor of it. It would take care of the same thing.
Staff.
Members of the board, the vote that you end up with, your findings of fact need to support that. That is the best way of making your decision.
So should I just look at casting the votes for number 1 again, just to look and see where we're at?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could even clarify a little bit on that. If a use is allowed in a district, that means they can apply for a permit. If it's
Okay.
not allowed, you can't apply for a permit.
So obviously.
So that's
then-
just a little bit of clarity on the,
Right. So-
on the
They
allowed.
can't apply for a permit.
Okay. All right, so looking at number 1 again, George,
If you define it that way, I'd have to say yes. Is the use permitted? Sure it is.
right, Dave?
yes.
I'm a yes, Bonnie,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
and Ken.
Yes.
So that's a yes for number 1 now. And then number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. That's where it's more of the question, I think.
Right, the specific requirements.
Okay. Where are we at on that? Thoughts?
I don't want to jump in over Becky on this, but I think the one way you can look at this question is, what are the reasons for the ordinance? What's the reason for the 2 variances that he's asking for? And that's the general purpose and intent of the official control, not what is the official control, because as Ken says, that's what they're asking a variance for. But why do we have the non-egg setback and what do we have the residential setback for? That's what you should talk about, if you agree with that, Becky.
And I guess my thought was first, I thought this didn't belong there, and then I thought if somebody was putting a chicken barn someplace on 20 acres or 40 acres, which would have 400 or 600 animal units, and there was a house 500 feet away or 400, it would get approved in a heartbeat.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and this is not, it just sounds overwhelming, this many sheep, but as far as, if you go to animal units, it's the same number of animal units. It's a lot less animal units than one chicken barn. It will be over 400 animal units.
And then the counter to that is, then if you have a standard of 700 feet, then why doesn't everybody just come in with a variance on it? Right?
Well, they have a right to ask.
They do. Yep. They paid their fee.
They have the right to ask for it.
Well, then there's, in my opinion, there's something fundamentally wrong then with the standard.
Then we wouldn't exist.
I think what the standard probably was made for was, if somebody's going to put in 1,500 cows, really a large thing, or a 2,000 head feedlot where you have acidosis order and other things, some things are, some things, I guess, it would depend on the prevailing winds. If the prevailing winds are blowing away from the structure, I don't think that you'd want to put a structure 400 feet and, right downwind of somebody that has to smell it all the time.
The county has it defined in animal units.
I got it right here.
Well, I mean,
Mr. Chair, the members of the board, the animal units are defined by the Minnesota State Pollution Control Agency, and I can provide those to you. But so yeah, the animal units are established by state law.
My thought was the residential setbacks was just to avoid conflict.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, if
And
these large things that's why they're all moving away, because these super large feedlots are all built out in rural areas.
And then with that in mind, if I can ask the applicant a question, those residences,
Yes.
do any of those residences, are they attached to, on a farm with their own feedlot? And
The one right across the road from me, he actually owns the farm, kitty corner as the crow flies. So his land runs up to County Road 3 to the west. So
And-
he's a farmer. I have no problem with him ever. We get along good. And one to the east of me, that residence, I guess that's the land issue there, not the residence. The one to the west would be, they're on egg land. They don't farm or nothing. Yeah.
It was probably a deal of somebody getting a parcel of land and building before the official control, and they're trying to stop residences from scattering through the country so much that we can't do anything.
Yep. Yeah, like this place originally was a farm site years way back. I mean, the middle shed was a building when I bought it 20 some years ago, was still there. And then there was an old house barn, dairy barn there at one time. And so, and like the neighbor, well, actually the one neighbor to us, their land we rent, they're pretty good friends of ours. And they farm, that's old farm structure that surrounds Opole too. So I don't think they're going nowhere for a long time. The guy owns it or nothing.
So, I mean, obviously the neighbors don't care. They're okay with it because
Yeah.
they didn't send in anything or come to this forum. So, I mean, that's got to certainly be part of our decision-making process too, if the neighbors care about
That's
it.
generally what we go
Big,
by.
yeah, yep.
And then when you look at that, the setback from the other district, you know, you've got a field, and then next to that, Polar Industries. So to me, when I'm thinking about, well, if that use were to change from a farm, from field, what's it more likely to change to? If I'm going to build a house, I don't know that I'm going to build next to Polar. You know, if I had a choice. So that land probably is maybe going to be more commercial, industrial in the future if Holding Ford were to expand. And to me, having livestock close to an industrial or commercial is not as big as of an impact of having livestock next to a residential area. You know, who knows what that land will become in the future. It might just stay a farm field for extended years.
And also agriculture is forever changing, you know. It's changed a lot since I was a kid, and it's going to continue to change. And we don't know exactly what directions it's headed in. And we don't want to tie the hands too much of what's going to come in the future too. You know, we're just here to mediate and make a best decision. Sometimes our decisions can be right, and sometimes they can be questionable. But at the present time, it doesn't make sense when we have an expanding population in the world and demand for food, and some people are going hungry, to tie the hands of agriculture any more than we have to. And we have to preserve what we have in ways that we can. So, you know, as long as it's reasonable and it's done properly, you know, we do the best practices that we can to make sure that residences and people get along. I mean, nothing magical.
Going back to George's comment, who says those three neighbors are going to live there forever? Now, I'm going to sell because Mr. Square has 1,500 sheep across the road. What's that going to do to my property value? That I'm within 384 feet of that. The consideration.
See, I guess if we can't come to a conclusion, we could go down to alternative 3 and approve that. That would give them the 99.99. And then at some point in time in the future, if he decides to go over, he would have to come back and reapply to go over.
And again, Mr. Square, you had said that at this point you're aiming high.
Yeah, yes.
Or sometime in the future you may decide to do those 1,500.
Yes.
But this is our option right now to.
Exactly.
We don't
but
want.
That would be a question for staff. Can we change his request?
Well, that's one
we
of
can
the options
downsize
here.
it. We can't increase it, but we can. Yes, we can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because then the houses would all be far enough away.
Yeah, I'd be on board with that.
Only thing would be the 350-foot deal, and
But would the applicant be on board with it?
we can't always look at the applicant.
Well, I understand that, but you have to take his feelings into consideration and his financial outlook and.
Well, the last people, we just kicked them out of their house.
Yeah.
That's hard.
We have to come to either we have to vote, some more people have to vote yes, or we have to change to
The
option
request.
3.
Has anybody changed their opinions at all on number 2?
I don't think so.
Do we have to revote that second one?
Or we could look at the other.
Or just make the motion, and if you don't approve it, you don't vote yes or no, or.
Well, if we look at, you're talking about like question number 2 that is on the findings, we could rediscuss that with the idea that it is 99.99 instead of 150. And then we could re-answer that question.
Is that legal?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Angie can correct me if I'm wrong, the applicant has requested the 151, whatever it is. So I think you'd have to make some sort of motion on that. But then I believe you can make a motion and do findings for the 99.99.
Does that mean you have to do everything over again, correct?
It'd be two separate votes, two separate findings. Does that make sense?
So, Mr. Chair, basically what you would go do is you would go through your findings, which you were almost through until we got stuck, and then there would be a motion to deny, and then you could turn around and approve something less than that. As Becky stated, you would want to make sure your findings support both the denial and the approval. If some of your questions are the exact same, just state that for the record. But obviously, some of them need to be different.
Okay.
Okay, but let me just get it clear. He's requesting variances for the existing feedlot, the buildings. But if he wants 99 animal units, he doesn't need to talk to us.
No, Mr. Chair, members of the board, if the feedlot were 99.99 animal units, there is still a setback of 350 feet to the non-ag district to the east.
Okay.
So that would be the only remaining variance.
So then we could do findings and say the findings would be the same, all except number 2, and then we rediscuss number 2, and hopefully have a positive outcome on that.
Okay, so can you then go over the 2, right? Yeah, right?
So we have to, deny the one first, and then.
Correct, so
yeah.
continue on with number 2 or where you're at, correct?
Yep.
All right, so I will need a motion to deny, correct? Yeah, because you have to go through the denial and then, correct? Got it right? All right, good, it's late, we're good. All right, motion to deny the variance request for the, what was it, 150 AU. Can I get a motion for that denial? I'll give you that sheet there.
I make a motion to deny the permit for a feedlot located 525, 539, and 684 feet from the 3 neighboring residences and 130 feet from a here it says 130, isn't it supposed to be 350?
The request is for 130.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. 130 feet from the non-agricultural district boundary.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion from Bonnie, second from George. Remaining votes to support the denial, we have Dave.
I'll say no. I could say no.
Yeah, you can vote.
Oh, yeah. I am a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
No.
It'd be
Should have 4 and 2.
4 2, yeah, you're right. You're good to go. All right. 4
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So now you.
And so now we can go to our 90.
Now you have to do both of those separate then.
Yes, okay. All right. And then then to the approval for the 99.
We'd have to do findings for that.
Yeah, correct.
99.99.
Yeah, okay. All right. So moving to the findings of fact for that. So going to number 1, starting all over. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property line is located. Yes or no?
Could we just reference our previous
Yeah,
findings?
Mr. Chair,
we can
for
do
the
that.
board, yes. You can.
All right.
Yep, you
Okay,
can say
so yes
all the
for
same
number
except for
1.
number 2.
And number 2 for our discussion then.
Number 2, I would say yes for number 2.
Dave is yes for number 2. George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
So, and then, so that number 2 is approved, so yes for 1, 2, 3 as previous, 4 as previous, 5 as previous, 6 as previous, and 7 as previously voted, correct? Is that fine? Fair to do it that way?
Yep.
All right, a motion and a second to approve that with 99.9 animal units, correct?
Great.
Which is essentially approving the 130-foot setback.
Okay. Somebody want to give that a formal motion? Or did I just do that?
Oh, here, I'll make a motion to, no, not this one.
This one, yep.
We need to permit a feedlot located 130 feet from a non-agricultural district boundary.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, remaining votes, George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, that motion is now approved. Your variance has been approved. And any questions, just ask staff, okay? Thank you so very much for your patience. Moving on towards the end of our agenda here, minutes from the 28th of April meeting. Any corrections? Otherwise, a motion and a second to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Motion from Ken to approve, second.
I'll second.
Second from George. All those in favor approving the minutes say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Do you know how many items we have on next month's agenda, Angie?
And were those minutes
Not
from
off the
April?
top of my head.
Said they were here.
Full 5 or 6, I
They
think.
were the May meeting, May,
That's weird that I got this one then. Isn't that weird?
okay.
Yeah, so just note, it is for the May meeting. My motion minutes were incorrect here, so it's the May 26th meeting, right? So editorial for that, it's not the April meeting, it's the May 26th. Sorry, Angie, continue.
I think it's a handful. I don't know for sure without checking with staff on what still might be coming. Well, not coming in, but information.
You still have a few more days.
Pardon?
You still have a few more days.
Well, the
before-
deadline, yeah, we do actually. The deadline's Monday. You're right, Ken. And before you adjourn, I just have one comment. I see you're ready with the gavel. And we don't have to talk about this right now, but maybe if you have any ideas or questions on information our department can help give you, specifically for the home in the Bluff Impact Zone. As a zoning administrator, I think I'm failing the Board of Adjustment when variances like that get granted. I realize this is on tape, and that's fine. The applicants can hear it. Those variances shouldn't be granted. That house was too big for the neighborhood, for that lot. There were other options where they could build not needing a variance, and I'm not picking on any of you. It's hard, I get it, and I've sat through hundreds of these meetings over 25 years. But variances like that for that size of a home, shouldn't be granted, even with some mitigation or a lot of mitigation. So, and that road in particular, Langevin Drive, is very unimproved. Many of you have been on it. That road is going to continue to develop at this rate, and if variances like this keep getting approved, then you're just going to keep seeing them. So it is what it is. I have to give a report to the DNR every year on variances that are approved in the Bluff and Shore Impact Zone. So I'll do that. But if there's things that we can help you do, like George, I know you asked, what's the purpose and intent of having a bluff setback? And so I can try to put some of that together. So maybe you could have kind of a go-to sheet to say, well, why do we have a 10-foot setback? Why do we have a bluff setback? Why do we have a right-of-way setback? So if some of that would help, let me know. Our staff reports historically and typically don't give a recommendation for denial. I don't see that changing. Our board, that's not the role of the zoning department. But let me know if there's things that we can help you put in your toolbox. And if not, you just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll keep doing what we're doing.
So I would like to comment a little bit. So I would kind of support what Angie's saying from the standpoint. This is my 4th or 5th one, and just generally speaking, I believe this board approves too many. There's got to be something that takes us back to the standard of what the standard is. And I know there are exceptions, but if you go back and look at the history of the meetings that I've been to so far, the majority of them are approved.
And Angie, could I ask you a procedural question on that Bluff Impact Zone one? Would it be appropriate or inappropriate for someone like me to say, remember back 2 meetings ago when we denied that variance on Big Watab Lake because it was in the shore, in the Bluff Impact Zone?
That
that's
is appropriate.
or not appropriate?
It's appropriate in terms of the law. Typically, judges will look at what's similarly situated in time and place. So they won't necessarily, like, that couldn't be the only reason you deny something, but it could be part of your discussion.
Well, there was
Correct.
a whole bunch of things there.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, my personal thing is if there should have been some give and take. If they wanted to expand a little bit, then they should have give up more. They should have said, well, we're gonna keep the Soil and Water's plan. You can't have cake and eat it too, because we got to protect that slope from drifting into the lake. You know, that's was my thinking.
Absolutely.
I would have said 50 feet or nothing.
Reinforcing what George says, in my previous life, there was some discretion, but if you're not gonna follow the laws, why have them? Yeah, you're not gonna follow the ordinances, why have them? Drive as fast as you want, you know.
Yeah, a lot of these.
Beat up your partner tomorrow. Who cares? You know, and
But
we'll
you
let
know,
you go.
some of these are things that were done before the official patrol.
Absolutely. There's
And that house
discretion.
got there
there's
before the official
exceptions
patrol.
to the rule.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so they're, you know, I don't think that we're gonna come, I feel worse if we go over the 25%.
And just as Dave had just said, I think, I look at things differently when I see that they're replacing a house that currently existed there. And if somebody was going to put a brand-new house, nothing had ever been on that property,
It would have to conform.
I would probably look at it a lot differently.
That's right. But if that old house was there and, you know, if they are making concessions to how close they were to the lake or something, and, you know, it bothered me that they went that much bigger, but then we should have kept a hard line on the mitigation of the soil and water.
So that's kind of the criteria. I always think about it. Has it been done yet? Has it been built yet? Like, example is that screen porch. The screen porch was not built yet. We could have denied that because,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know,
And how far is
It's-
construction along?
It's hard because it's so, sometimes it's so subjective.
yeah. Well, I've seen,
And,
go ahead.
and Angie, I'm sure would agree with it. I mean, those ordinances and the step, they're based on science. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
But
Septic sets back from the water, high water mark and all, there's science behind those.
And the one thing, that, you know, to your point, Bonnie, and then I'll be done, is that the state law was changed in 2006, which allows people to replace whereas as is. So no one was going to take away that home. No one was going to take away the right to replace the home even in the exact same location. But it got a lot bigger. And so I think that's just what you probably need to be careful about is you don't see the ones where they replace because we just handle those as staff. But how big is too big? And that's what you're going to probably keep seeing. So
goes back to the Birch
And
Lake deal.
then, you know, when we're talking about like this last one that we did, I think would have been simpler for us if we'd had our full board here, because then we would have had 7 members. What's kind of the status with that? Because I know Jill hasn't been here for quite some time.
She was here last month.
Was she
Yeah,
here last?
she
Was she?
last month.
Yeah, she was here.
Oh, she
Yeah,
was.
last month, but then
Okay.
before that, yeah.
She was online the other 2
Yeah.
months.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Dave that missed 2 months because he was
Okay.
gallivanting.
Okay, no, I guess,
Was it
to
traveling?
get that, then I was forgetting that she was here last
Yeah,
month.
she
But
was
I know
here.
she had missed quite a few meetings.
and she has an excused absence. She had a family death in her family.
Well, that's
So-
totally understandable. But, and, you know, as long as it came up, you know, they had mentioned about him, back when I was chair, I was doing that at first, and then I was told, well, no, that's an option, but you don't need to do that. You know, so then I thought, well, I did the site visits, I have an opinion, I want to, you know, be able to hear that. So I think for
Yeah,
you to
that's
be
what I kinda
voting
thought, yeah.
is totally appropriate, I think.
And I will get confirmation from our attorney's office and from Shelley on the whole vote, the no vote. I think you're right, Jacob. I'm pretty positive you're right, but I also didn't
I think I've done that when Shelley's been here too, and I think she might, I hope.
Yeah. We'll confirm,
But you might, yeah, thank you.
follow up next month so that
So-
you don't have to go through that again.
So I actually had a discussion with one of the commissioners, I'm not going to say which one, but he said that this board is here to bend the rules, not to disregard them. So again, the short time I've been here, the only consistency I see is that we approve too many. My observation.
Well, yeah, I'd say, I think that our staff has done a better job of screening some of these that we didn't. Some of that we got years back were much easier to say no, because they were just, I think they do a better job of.
It all comes down to $550. Does someone want to spend $550 to roll the dice? You know, and I talk to almost everybody who sits here, and I have these hard conversations with them. And yeah, we talk some people out of it maybe, but there's, you know, when you're building $1 million home, $550, you're going to try for it.
Yeah. And I will say one more thing. The staff is so great, and I know this will probably never happen, but they have, in my opinion, they have the capability to make every one of these decisions. And their decisions would be better than our decision because they're in that business.
I would agree with that. I know it's not their place, but.
No, and
you're the ones with the knowledge.
Yeah, and I know the reason why we have this is it pulls you up from this confrontation with the customer, and it puts it on this board. And it makes it more formal.
This is a board that's state law. This is a board that every single county has.
Well, I'm saying it exists. It's by law, but could it be done better? I think it could be.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel that some of the rules that come down seem a little bit overbearing, but you know, that's why we're here. If we see that, you know, it's hard to make a rule that it's going to fit everybody.
Yeah.
It's not going to fit.
Difficult situation.
So Angie, how does Benton County's work? Because their Board of Adjustment, the day of the meeting, they all go as a group and visit all of the sites. And then they have their meeting at night, so that's.
And that's published as an open meeting, so if anybody wants to join them, they can.
Right.
Because I think visiting the sites is just a crucial.
Yep.
Because looking at the stuff on paper and seeing it in person is totally two different things. Because there's been times that when I've read the paperwork at home, I've thought either absolutely yes or absolutely no. And then when I get there and I see it, it's like, oh, that's why, you know, it's something different. So.
And sometimes after the discussion too, you know, and all the information that staff gives us and stuff, it can change my mind. I've had it where I've said, oh, this will never fly. And it has. And I said, well, this will have no problem, and it's not.
I can tell you from Benton County, I work in Benton County. I don't work in that department, but I talk to those people. I know those people. They hate that process that they have.
They hate what?
They hate that process where they go out as a group and they do all that crap.
I don't care if they hate it. To me, it sounds like a good plan. And they only have one or two a month.
But the logistics are difficult for that, where when you have the staff here, they have their computer, they have the notes, they have everything. When you're out in a field somewhere, it's just problematic.
What they don't have is a county this large.
It's true.
Right. I understand that.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, I'm done. I'm going to zip it here, okay?
I come from the far corner of the county.
Yeah, you and me both.
Down here, and I'm spending most of my time down around the lakes.
Get rid of the chain of lakes would take a
That'd be
major part of our
that's
headache.
fine. Annex
Make
that
them
into
their
Meeker
own
County.
their own county, and
Kick it over to Meeker. They can
Yeah.
take it.
we'll just draw a line around those lakes.
Maybe the rest of the part of the
I'll make
state
my
could
reservation.
secede from Minnesota and go to South Dakota.
I don't want you to think I'm being critical. I appreciate each and every one of you and all the time and effort you put into talking to people and thinking about it when you're driving to work. I mean, I get it. Like, you guys are committed and this is hard work. So don't take that as criticism. Just please take it as maybe constructive criticism or just conversation. Because you don't have to be here, and I know that. So thank you for what you do.
I said from day one, we should just say no to all of them, and then we'd be in our rights, because they all are.
I mean, yeah, it works.
Should I make a motion to adjourn?
Motion from Dave to adjourn, second.
I'll second it.
Second from Rob. All those in favor say aye.
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 We're adjourned.